Welcome. This webinar is a crash course in study strategies, and it's going to provide a brief overview of study tips and strategies that will hopefully enhance your study habits and give you some ideas of how to approach not just studying for exams, but preparing for mastery throughout the semester. So in this webinar, we're going to discuss what studying is, what its components are, as well as review the learning process as framed by the late Professor Emeritus Arthur Shimamura in his text, Marge, A Whole Brain Learning Approach for Students and Teachers. We will also discuss specific study strategies as we learn about Marge, but let's first begin with what studying is. Now, Merriam-Webster's actually defines study as a careful examination or analysis of phenomena, development, or question. And I'll also add with the goal of attaining fuller understanding or comprehension, because studying often involves moving beyond the completion of assignments, reviewing class notes, and attending lectures. Studying itself is composed of varying sets of methods, techniques, and tools. So if you want study habits that are both effective and efficient, consider the elements of studying. So first, we have the hour or time of day, and this is going to be preferably when you're most primed to give focused attention. We suggest early or mid mornings or immediately after waking up if mornings aren't your thing. Also, don't worry if you have to observe your energy flow first to even determine when your optimal hours might be. In fact, considering each of these elements may require some trial and error on your part. So in addition, also have a sense of your preferred working hours, because this is going to give you a sense of how to pace your workload, which actually leads us to pacing. And this is going to be how you lay out or structure your study time. Now, there are a myriad of ways you can allocate your time, and considering this intentionally can help reduce or halt procrastination altogether. We'll discuss a couple examples of pacing in the latter part of this webinar, and you can also watch our time management webinar on procrastination, linked below. Next up, we do have environment. So this is going to be the location in which your work or studying is going to take place. This primarily influences our focus and our motivation. So it is encouraged for students who haven't considered it to evaluate their study environments. Ask yourself, hey, what are my environmental needs so that I can actually focus and give attention to something? In what ways might I be able to alter my environment to enhance my ability to focus? And then our last element here is going to be the actual strategies or tools. And these vary depending on the discipline that you're in, the assessment or assignment type that you're working on, as well as your own individual study needs. However, strategies, when considered in conjunction with time management, provide the most benefits when intentionally mapped out. So now that we've covered the elements of studying, let's dive into the core of our discussion, which is the learning process and study strategies. Arthur Shimamura introduces us to Marge as a way of understanding how we learn. There's actually a free PDF to this book, this ebook below if you're interested, but let's dive into this whole brain learning approach. First up, we have M for motivate, and the first step here is just being motivated to learn, study, or complete important tasks. Often students count on the instructor to motivate them to learn by making the lecture engaging or exciting, which is great in an ideal world. However, relying exclusively on this may not be an advantageous strategy. So consider how you might be able to go about motivating yourself to learn new information. Some examples of what motivation might look like include making the subject exciting for yourself through exploring or generating a personal interest in the topic or some sort of investment. Also, relating the subject to any personal experiences or observations you've had. Pacing also comes in throughout the entirety of the study process, to be honest, but it's definitely a big part of motivation since it can be used in your reward system. Pacing could include taking planned breaks, scheduling study blocks, and allocating specific cutoff times, using that free time or those cutoff times as a reward, getting some of that time back. Next up, we have attend. And attending is seeking out what is most relevant to the task at hand so that you're focused on the correct information within accurate parameters. So this is also very helpful for avoiding those who struggle with information overload. I know I'm one of those types. So great tools to determine what information to attend to are, looking and or turning to your syllabus to see if there are any course or learning objectives or weekly themes, as well as considering the type of assessment that you're completing. Am I doing an essay? Am I doing a quiz, an exam, a project? Also listing out or making a study guide that brings in or incorporates very significant concepts, vocabulary, theories, metrics, formulas that are either going to be assessed or used as tools in your assessment. So this way you know exactly what you're studying and how it relates to the course's overall learning goals. Next up, we have relating, and relating is integrating new information that you're learning into your existing knowledge or memory, which makes it easier to integrate this new information because you're linking it to existing wiring that's already in your brain. The way we might go about relating in study practice is actually to examine what we may already know about a topic and use it as the launching point for exploring what we're learning. Another way to use it might look like employing various memorization strategies, and I have a few examples on the screen. Chunking is one, so you see how it might be a little more difficult to remember in uncategorized grocery list, but maybe a categorized one you could. Acronyms, Marge itself is an acronym. Also PIMDAS, everybody remembers PIMDAS from middle school or high school maybe. And then visual imagery. So there's this odd kind of photo on the screen of a little canoe on a rock, but it's actually a memory technique. So it's a great image to remember the capital of Arkansas. So it's a arc, kind of like looking like a bit of a seesaw that's sitting on top of a Little Rock, Arkansas, right? So I thought that was helpful or cute even, but memorization tools like that, concept maps or hierarchical outlines, which is also on the screen, is a great way to see how different concepts relate to one another or affect one another. Flashcards as well. So your options are practically endless here, but the important aspect of the relating part of the learning process is to examine the material in memorable ways for you. So, for example, that Little Rock, Arkansas bit doesn't always land with people, but it lands with me. So just finding those techniques that work for you as an individual. Check out the link below for a list of study strategies and examples of how to employ them because, like I said, they are endless and I don't want you to think you're just confined to flashcards and study guides. Okay, next up we have generate, and generating is all about practicing what you're learning. This is great to enhance memory, but also gives you an opportunity to go deeper into the meanings or interpretations of what you're learning, as well as to maybe practice utilizing some skills or tools that you're being taught to use in the course. The key here is repeated generating or recall, and this enhances your memory while also moving you towards mastery of the material. How this might look, maybe you teach someone else or tutor someone else in your own words, complete fill-in blanks or missing information type of questions. Shimamura himself says in the ebook text, the more often you self-generate material, the better it will be established as a long-lasting memory. Shimamura also warns us that you can definitely turn to the text and lectures during the generation process to ensure that no information is missing or there are no gaps in your understanding, but try to produce the information and the answers on your own as best you can. And also remember that generating is best practiced regularly and at strategically spaced intervals. Lastly, in the MARGE acronym, we have evaluate. So in this context, it's mostly about self-assessment. While we can and often do wait until the professor tests us to determine our mastery of the material, an advantageous practice to incorporate into your study routine is to evaluate your own mastery along the way, long before the professor has a chance to. And this is a great way to ensure that we also don't run into what Shimamura calls the illusion of knowing, where a concept seems familiar enough. However, during crunch time, when it's time to perform on an exam or talk about it in an essay, you find it difficult to unpack or explain, especially in your own words. Examples of what evaluation might look like include are things that are similar to the generating step, because often evaluating our understanding requires us to independently generate or recall what we've learned over the course of the course. Funny. So some tools for evaluating include creating your own exam questions and answering them, mixing up the order of how you test yourself and the order the questions are in to ensure that you're memorizing the material and not the order of the responses. This is a type of, it's called interleaving, but it's a form of it. So that's all for this crash course. After all, it is a crash course. We hope that you gained some helpful insights, and we certainly invite you to check out the attached links if you'd like to read Shimamura's full ebook or begin exploring study strategies to add to your toolkit. If you're feeling inspired, we also encourage you to try out a study strategy that you've never tried before. And to get a more expansive set of tips for strategizing your studies, especially around time management, consider watching this in tandem with the Overcoming Procrastination webinar, which is also linked below. Again, thank you for watching, everyone, and have a great semester.